my friend. Welcome back to Parenting A to Z. I'm Kelly Bourne, and in this week's episode, we're diving into emotional literacy. And I know it probably sounds like a total snooze fest, but it's really important, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. We're going to dive into what it is, why it's important, and how we can teach our kids to flex those emotional muscles. Plus, I've got a sweet little download for you and some fun activities. So, like I said, you're not falling asleep with emotional literacy. It sounds so lame. We're going to make it cool. Okay, so what is emotional literacy? I know it makes you want to fall asleep. Probably even hearing me say it, because it's kind of a mouthful, isn't it? And basically all it really means is the ability to recognize and name emotions not only in ourselves but in others, because that skill is so important. It's the root of all those juicy characteristics we want to develop in our kids, things like self-compassion, empathy. Those things are impossible if we don't have the language to recognize and name emotions that we're seeing and witnessing in others. Because the thing is, I found this really interesting when I first heard this, that the average person can only name 3 emotions. Can you guess what they are? I know, just off the top of my head, I was able to happy, sad, and then some version of mad or angry or cheesed off. That's, for a lot of us, those are our go-to emotions. But the human experience is so much more varied and so much more vast than that. And especially when it comes to anger. Because anger is actually a secondary emotion. Anger only shows up after some other more sensitive emotions have maybe cropped up, and that we're using anger as that socially acceptable mask. Things like jealousy, fear, resentment, regret, those can all be masked by anger. So that's where emotional literacy is really important, to just kind of beef up our awareness and not be distracted by especially anger, to peel back the layers and look at what's underneath. But we can't look at what's underneath if we don't have the language to match. So that's where we come in. And this is one of those interesting things where, at least for myself, I was kind of learning this skill as I was trying to teach it to my kids, because I was a happy, sad, mad person. Like that was the extent of my emotional vocabulary, just because it wasn't a muscle I was used to flexing. So as I was learning these emotions, I was sharing them with my kids. And one really fun way you can do this is through your phone. Of course, like I've got my phone in arm's reach, who doesn't? But using the emojis on your phone to go through and ask your kids what each of the faces are and what they think each of the emojis is feeling. And this actually, for us, it happened quite organically, because I don't know, I had an update and there were some new faces and I didn't actually know what they were. I was kind of confused by them, and I was just sitting there with my kids, and we were going through and naming them and guessing what the emojis were feeling. That's a really fun way to start the process with your kids. And to help you in naming those emotions, I've got a free download called Feeling Vocabulary, just moving beyond happy and sad. It's got a ton, I don't know how many, over 50 different feeling words, and I'll leave the link. You can grab it in the description below, and it'll also give you access to my entire parenting resource library. So from here on out, you'll have all the cheat sheets, all the worksheets right there in one spot. But make sure to grab your feeling vocabulary before you start working on things like emoji emotions with your kids, so you have some back pocket examples and aren't just scrambling with the happy, sad, and mad like I was. So I found that really helped. Another really good option, especially with small kids, don't try this with older kids. They'll probably think you're totally lame and they'll just roll their eyes, is I call it grocery store detectives. I would do this with my kids when they were younger, and really what it is recognizing and naming emotions in others, and developing that sensitivity for, why do you think that baby is crying, and what do you think that face means, and why do you think that little boy is laying in the middle of the aisle throwing a fit? Oh wait, that's you. But I think you get the idea. It's all just about practicing and naming those emotions, and you can even make faces with each other around the table. Of course, depending on your kid's developmental level and their age, this would probably not be appropriate for like a 14 or a 15-year-old. They would just totally tune you out. But for your little kids, it can be really fun and really effective to practice making different faces and guessing what the emotion is. Another really good one too, you can put the old Google machine to work and just Google feeling faces, and about a million there's probably actually more than a million search results of a whole bunch of little faces showing different emotions that you can go through with your kids and look at the faces and start to get names for what each of the feelings are, so your kids can have more of an emotional vocabulary that many of us had growing up, the happy, sad, mad. So then that way they can start developing self-compassion, they can better experience empathy because they've got the tools and the underlying skills to do that. So I'll leave you to it, guys. I hope this has inspired you to try out either emoji emotions or feeling faces, or trying grocery store detectives to help boost up your kids' emotional literacy. And of course, if you're looking for more in-depth support, one-on-one resources, join us over in the Parenthood, our private membership community. We have a lot of fun over there, and you're always welcome. And until then, best of luck with your emotional literacy. See, it's such a mouthful, I can't even say it. I'll see you in the next video, guys.